Yeah, totally. We're so like conditioned, right, to be polite because the world gaslights us into constantly explaining ourselves, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, politeness is a whole other rabbit hole I can get into more detail later. But basically, it was originally a form of class warfare. Like back in the day, uh, the warrior class could go around killing the peasants for any reason. Because they just had the power. And
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of the peasants were hired by, and some of them were also like not just peasants but like outright slaves and indentured servants, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um and serfs, right? So it was it was bad for the landowners as well because they were losing resources, right? And then it was
Mm-hmm.
bad for the peasants because they were getting killed. And so over time, people started inventing these politeness structures in languages, in, especially during post-colonial times, uh, as a way to appease the warrior class so that at least if they're polite, uh, it might reduce, prevent the murders, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with that is over time, uh, the issue becomes about politeness rather than the actual issue. And this is
Mm-hmm.
where even nowadays, the alt-right will be like, oh, why can't we have civility again instead of talking about racism? Now that,
Yeah.
it's kind of completely derailed the issue. So
Yeah.
it didn't work anyways. That's the moral of the story I wanted to say. Even though it was invented to reduce the murders, ultimately it became its own weapon, its own excuse to keep killing and keep
No,
oppressing.
definitely.
Yeah.
And that's happening right now too. Like when we think about who the aggressors of white supremacist violence are, like this is something that I always tell my students is that anybody can be kind. Like someone who is in a lot of mutual aid groups, who organizes with like Black Lives Matter, yes, they are kind. But a lot of white supremacists who go to church on Sunday, who do volunteer work and charity, we also consider them kind. So rather than using kindness as like the framework to decide like what's wrong or what's right, how can we base it off on like justice instead? And
Exactly.
yeah, and I'm still learning that lesson too, whenever I think about what role does kindness have in my life, or how do I want to teach like future generations or even like my own students about
Mhm.
how to be kind but also how to exercise justice.
Mhm. I love that. Like, I love the addition of justice that you put in because I used to try to make a distinction between being kind and being nice, right? Like
Hmm.
the nice guy syndrome or even the nice girl syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Where uh, and 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 often the nice guy is is actually a passive aggressive asshole in disguise. They're using niceness
Hmm.
to hide behind, uh, and they have all of these like unspoken expectations, and then they try to become resentful later when they don't get what they want in return for being nice, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so they're not even actually kind, you know.
Yep.
That's like being nice is like the worst level of human decency.
Yeah. I'm glad that you said that too, because like there are lots of people who even fail to be nice to, and it's like, come on.
Right.
Hmm.
So yeah, let's do one more musical break.